Hello and welcome. Tyler Arcari from Excelcia Music Publishing here, and today I have the privilege and honor of interviewing two, I'm not going to say old, that's not the nice word to say, but they are veterans of the industry. And I've got Larry Clark and Diana Traietta, and they're going to tell us a little bit about themselves, and then we're going to ask them some questions about the industry, where it's going, and how they feel about it. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry, let's start with you. A little background, a little brief bio.
Sure. After a career as a middle school and college band director, I went into the music industry at Warner Brothers Publications back in 1995. Worked there for 4 years, and then I was almost 19 years at Carl Fisher Music. Worked 4 years in New York, and then worked almost 15 years from home. And in 2018, then decided to start my own publishing company, which is Excelcia Music Publishing. And so I've been in the music publishing business for 24 years now. So, awesome. Yeah.
See, veteran.
Yes, veteran.
Diana?
Hi, everybody. So yes, I started in this industry and I figured it out last night in 2005. Shortly after leaving school, I studied music education, a violin major. I started first with music sales, which is now owned by Hal Leonard, but I started this in the publishing industry with music sales in their Chester, New York office. From there, I went over to Carl Fisher Publishing, where I did educational sales. I was basically an inside sales rep for dealers. From there, I wanted to expand on my industry knowledge. So I was hired by Music and Arts. I was an educational sales rep in Northern Virginia, and then was promoted to affiliate regional manager. I oversaw our affiliates in the Mid-Atlantic area until Larry gave me a call and offered me a position as Director of Sales and Marketing with Excelcia Music Publishing, and this is where I am now.
And you also do a little extra stuff for us here too, right?
For Excelcia, yes. So besides overseeing sales and marketing, I'm also the person doing conventions, the emails.
I was thinking more. Some of your more professional duties here with us. What are we?
Oh, I also do string editing for the company, which I'm really excited about.
So I think it's neat that you guys talked about multiple jobs within this industry, aside from just being a teacher. Though Larry, you were a teacher, and Diana, you have taught students as well. I think it's interesting and cool for directors and students to see that there are lots of jobs in this industry and lots of different moving pieces that are important for people, and that those are opportunities in the future if they're looking to go into music.
Right.
So thank y'all for expanding on that.
Sure.
So the next question is going to lead into our bigger questions, and I want to just ask your personal quick, what inspires you about the industry since you have been involved with it for so long? What's something that's really inspirational that you have kind of enjoyed along the way?
Well, the reason I got into it in the first place, and I was mentored in the publishing business by Sandy Felstein, and a lot of people know Sandy, who was Executive Vice President of Alfred, and then President at CPP Bellwin, and then Warner Brothers, and then Carl Fisher. So that's my connection to there. But the reason he convinced me to get into the industry in the first place is still from an educator standpoint. Because I still see my role in publishing music for students for educational purposes, that I'm helping students through the music that I write, the music that I publish, the music that I edit, and helping students get better on their instruments, helping teachers have good materials to teach those students. And that's what it's all about as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome.
So what inspires me in this industry is relationships. One of the really unique things that I enjoy so much is I'm still working for the most part with the same buyers, the same music stores that I did when I first started in 2005. So being able to still work with Norm up at Steve's Music, or Tracy over at Musical Innovations, and to build on that relationship and become friends and go to these conventions and see and just work together from business to business. It's been amazing. And it's so much more than just friends. These are people that are my family now, my extended family.
Awesome. So this one we're going to go kind of more as a specific question about the publishing business in relation to dealers. So as a publisher, what kind of relationship do you have with music stores and music dealers? And more specifically, what's kind of the process? So how do we function in that machine, and how does a dealer function in that machine from getting music from publication to consumers?
Diana, why don't you take that?
Yeah, so I think it's really great to give this kind of behind the scenes perspective to a music educator, especially to kind of see what the dynamic in the relationship is between publisher to dealer to educator. So as a publisher, if you were to look at the top of the pyramid, I mean, we are manufacturing a product that we stock, and then in turn, we have to deal with to have our dealers out there, our music stores, stock or purchase that stock and then present that to the educator to purchase. And now if you look at it backwards, that as an educator, you're going through and you're getting all your promos every year, you're discovering all new great amazing music, and you make a decision on what you would like to purchase. So you go to your favorite music store, you give them the titles. They in turn once a week give the publisher a call, probably with all the orders they've collected over the week. They speak to their rep, like me, on the phone. They say what we need to order and what we need to stock. And then in turn, or any publisher, we're shipping out the product to them, which takes a couple of days. But then the teacher is getting it once it gets delivered.
Awesome. So to expand on that, could you give us a play-by-play of director in a town calls up their local shop and orders a piece, and how does that direct kind of line translate for us?
So sure. So once that dealer, you place your order with your dealer, and the dealer gives me a call. I mean, there's an entering, there's a shipping process, there's a get it out the door, but really it's supporting the larger part of this industry, and what is really unique about it is it's so much bigger than a lot of people think. You know, that piece of music that you're purchasing is not only supporting the local music store so they can pay their overhead, their employees, you know, and keep, you know, themselves in business, but it's also that piece, that band set that you're buying is also working with publishers, helping to pay our overhead, to pay our composers, to pay our editors. You know, the tree is massive of how many people are really affected by each piece that the music teacher purchases. So being able to work together in the circle of educator, music store, and publisher or manufacturer is very important.
I think it's really also important to emphasize the fact that the local music dealer knows the customer.
Yep.
They know the needs of the teacher or the student or the parent who's ever purchasing the music from them. They know what they need. And that band director, orchestra director, choir director can call up their local dealer and say, hey, I have, you know, really weak violas, or I have really weak clarinets, or my altos aren't very good, or I don't have enough men in my choir, whatever that might be. Then they have the expertise and the sensitivity to that to then recommend good music for them to pick. Us as a publisher are sort of thinking more globally. How can we provide music that's going to help, you know, overall sort of in the middle, but then local dealers help the teachers by helping them pick music that works best for their region and their area and also their needs. We can't know that about every single you know, teacher out there. And so if you have that relationship with that local dealer, that's usually where you can make a connection and have those people give you that sort of feedback and really service you and as a customer.
It's awesome. My favorite thing you guys have talked about so far is the relationship, because I think that's important, even from student to teacher. but we also have relationships from teacher to dealer and rep, because I did when I was a band director. And then you have a relationship between dealer and publisher. And I think it's important because we all have to keep those relationship tip-top shape. And another thing to add on to what you both said about your dealers, when I was a director, I would call my dealers and ask them, I would tell them about my ensemble and ask them about, okay, what's on the state list that you think would be good to look at? Because they know exactly what's on that state's list. And most states either have a list or some kind of body of music to play from. So those are resources your local music shops can help you with, as well as lessons and all kinds of other stuff.
Sure.
So, we're going to talk a little bit more nitty gritty about the actual relationship that we have with dealers. How do you feel about dealers keeping stock of our products? And what's your philosophy on supporting dealers in this way as the industry changes, and as, you know, how we feel about stock as a whole, and that philosophy?
Well, it's changed. I mean, over the years, because of the fact that now we have, you know, digital delivery of things, we also have, you know, things that we didn't have, you know, 25, 30 years ago, like FedEx and UPS over, you know, overnight things. We've become a society of instant gratification. So that's changed our industry also, in the fact that people want to have things fast, but it's also made it that it's not as imperative for that local music store to have every single piece of music that we publish, or any other publisher for that matter, in stock. Because what that really does is it weighs down those local dealers with inventory. And it used to be that we would, as publishers, try to push a lot of that product into the stores as much as we could, because obviously then that would give us cash flow. But it also then puts a lot of importance on the local dealer to manage that inventory. And a lot of dealers over the years have suffered and have, quite frankly, gone out of business because they've been overloaded with an inventory, and they haven't, you know, been able to control that inventory and the cost of that inventory. So I think now what's changed is we can do it more immediate. There's things that are also better for us as publishers now, like print on demand, rather than in the old days when I started at Warner Brothers in publishing. You know, we had these huge offset presses with these big, ginormous room-sized rolls of paper, and we had to print, you know, a large quantity of any book or any piece of music in order to make it viable financially. Now, the technology is such that you want to print one, you want to print five, you want to print 500. Essentially, the basic cost per unit has now become the same. And so you can have, for our own inventory control too, we can control that a little bit better, and not have to have a huge amount of stock in order to get the best prices. So that then, of course, that makes the profit margin better, which is, you know, of course, any business, that's, you know, that's important. So we're trying really hard to work with the dealers in order to get over that hump of saying you have to take all these new pieces from us right away in order to get the, you know, the best discount, so that you can then pass that on to your teachers and students.
Awesome. So Diana, anything to add to that?
I think what Larry said is great, and is basically everything I was going to say. And I think from an educator, sometimes as an educator, when we go into a music store, we're shopping online, we're thinking like a teacher instead of a business owner. And I think when a lot of frustration happens with whether, you know, pricing, or why I can't get this piece of music, or why is it out of print, I think it's important to put the business hat on and know that on our shelves and on the dealer shelves, that's prime real estate for music. So there's millions and millions of pieces of music out there in print, right? It is impossible for any publisher or any music store to have every single thing available in multiple quantities. Right. And, you know, we look as a business in an industry how a piece sells, you know, over a course of 6 months, 12 months. And, you know, that's how we decide what kind of stock we want to keep on hand in the future of those pieces. But like Larry said, you know, even though, you know, those are smart business decisions to make about how your inventory management and control is, But the cool thing is that we do have the technology nowadays that we can print in small batches and be able to get things out the door very quickly.
Which is awesome because I ran into out of print all the time when I was in the classroom. And so it's
Well, there's really no excuse now for publishers moving forward. At least, I mean, I understand, like from my experience at Carl Fisher, which is a very old catalog, started in 1870. So there was so much old music, and it would take a long time to digitize a lot of that. But really, going forward, anything that's published this year or even, you know, a few years ago, there really should be no excuse for it to be not available in some fashion, whether that be digital or a print on demand sort of a setup.
All right, so let's talk about something that I've heard kind of coming up. So I'm new in the industry. I've only been on this side for about 2 years, and before that, I was a published composer for a little while. But I don't know much of the inner workings. And before I was involved, I had similar misconceptions about this next question as well. So can we talk about, I guess, the overhead that's involved with publishing a piece of music from start to finish? And, you know, the elephant in the room is that when a composer signs a contract to give up copyright to a publisher, they essentially are selling it for 10% royalties on retail. So if we sell a piece for $100, composer gets 10% of the retail price at $10. So, but the misconception is that 90% of that goes to the publisher.
Right.
So can we maybe talk about the overhead and the different cost avenues that happen and where that ends up?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, we have to think in terms as a company, you know, the most expensive costs are people. And to me, people are the most important part also. So you want to pay people a living wage and things like that. So that's expensive. You want to give your people good health benefits and good, you know, all that stuff that, you know, teachers expect from, you know, the school system that they work for. But what people have to understand is that there's also that dealer network who we support that has to do all that as well, pay their employees good benefits for them, all that stuff in that process. And you say, well, why can't a composer just sell it on their own? Well, they can now with internet and stuff like that, but it's a matter of distribution. Can one composer get their piece out to as large of a dealer network as we have and other publishers have, and get it around the world in as much quantity? So I always like to say to young composers who are thinking about self-publishing, do you want a little of a lot or a lot of a little? And me as personally as a composer, I'll take the little of a lot because I then know that my music's more out there and is getting performed more. Am I making it as much per copy as I could if I were publishing on my own? Of course not, but I'm going to sell a heck of a lot less. And then think about the costs that go in. Number one, we have to give a discount to the dealer so that they have money that they can earn from the publication. They do promotion. They have websites. They have people. They have all those costs involved. We have the same thing. But on top of that, what we add to the equation that a self-published composer can't do is we offer professional recordings of all our music. We do marketing, which costs expensive. Last year, we sent out 50,000 brochures to music teachers everywhere. That's super expensive. We do email every single week. We have to pay for the cost of the email list in order to make sure we can get that out there. We do social media. We do a lot of things to try to help the composers get their music out there and also get the added information to the teachers so that they can purchase it. So it's a really big equation. And when it comes down to it at the end of the day, there really aren't that many pennies left for, quote, the profit part of it. So thinking that the composer gets 90 and the composer gets 10 is really, that's not accurate. And there's a lot of cost involved in that you know, people don't know about.
So what I heard that there are, of course, employees that work at the company.
Sure.
There's discounts, because technically we're wholesale, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we wholesale out to dealers who then are able to sell after the discount to make their money as well. So there's that discount that goes out of it. And then we've got shipping and printing and graphic designers and all kinds of stuff like that on top of marketing. So I think it's interesting to think that, you know, we have to do that kind of stuff in order to get it out to as many dealers as possible. And that does take away from that 90% block that I think a lot of people think of when they think relationship between composer and publisher.
Sure, and the other thing is we want to make sure that the composer can compose. That's what they're good at. That's what they love to do. That's what they want to do. So we take a lot of the responsibilities, you know, making the music look beautiful in the engraving, you know, in the finale or Sibelius work, making the covers beautiful, presenting the composer in the best light possible with professional recordings, so that they can concentrate on writing music. I think every composer that I've ever worked with, they want their music to be played by as many people as possible. They want to share that joy of writing music to the world. The best way to do that is to get it out there as in many places as possible. And that's, you know, where a publisher comes in. Now, I do feel like composers have not felt treated as well over the years, because the model has changed. And so there's the perception now that they're not getting their money's worth, you know, and they should maybe get a higher percentage and things like that. But that's what we're trying to change. That's what we're trying to do differently. You know, we like to think of ourselves as a composer-focused publisher, and I've told the story before, probably on some other videos, that I almost called the company Composer First Publishing, because I wanted it to be focused on making sure we help composers more than I've seen happen in other places I've been in the past. But I decided not to do that because, you know, there's other parts to that chain. There's the student, there's the teacher, there's the music dealer. So I wanted it to be, you know, a little bit more all-encompassing. But we are trying really hard to make sure that the composer is at the first step of the process and really important to what we do.
Awesome. Well, thank
Diana,
you.
anything to add to that, Diana? Did I cover most of it?
It was great. And I think, you know, what's really great about being in a new company, new publishing company, and I know we've all been in this industry for so many years, is to kind of collectively take all the things that we've learned individually and maybe said at some point, man, I wish this would change. And to now be in this amazing company where we can make the list of all the things we wanted to do better and do right for our dealers and our composers, and do it. And it's so much fun.
Awesome.
Well, I'm big on trying things too. You know, if we come up with a good idea and we think we try it, and if it doesn't work, then we try something else. I mean, it's, you know, we don't have all the answers. We're just trying to find the right answers.
Good. So a little bit more on the dealer side now. If and Diana, I think this one's kind of a passionate one for you as a former rep that would travel to schools. If you are a director and your assessment is next week or tomorrow, and you need 3 scores now, could you talk about maybe some of the process and pitfalls that might fall on the local dealer in that sense when you call and say, I need this now?
Okay, so thank you. This is such an important question because it happens every year. It's almost like clockwork on the calendar. We know when it's festival time because people are buying their scores. And as an ed rep visiting schools and dealing with, you know, needing to get stuff overnighted, to even being on the publishing side and trying to figure out how to make miracles happen in most cases, what I like to remind all educators are, it's kind of like Thanksgiving. You know Thanksgiving's coming at the same time every year. You might not know what you want your main entree to be, whether it be turkey or ham, but you know it's coming. And that if you decide Wednesday night before Thanksgiving that you want to have turkey and you go to the grocery store and they're out of them, it's incredibly hard to make what you want happen. So it's very similar to festival season and buying scores. So if you wait, now mind you, it's not just you and your district having ensemble time at the same time meeting scores. It's the rest of the country too. So everybody is calling in and wanting something very quickly. So a couple of things happen with that. I would absolutely recommend that when you purchase your music in the fall, even if you're not sure if you're going to play it for festival time, order your 3 scores when you actually buy and purchase the set. It's always good to have them on hand anyway, extra scores, but it will save a lot of headaches later on. So buy your scores in the fall when you buy the set. So if you waited until the last minute to order your scores, it puts stress on the dealer first, because now, you know, they might have just placed their order with their publisher the day before. And a lot of the dealers do it weekly, like once a week they place their orders with the dealers. So now they have to make an extra shipment, which for a lot of people don't realize that costs more for shipping. You know, the dealer saves their orders all week so they can get the best deal on shipping to order it all together. Now that extra order complicates that. But you're also taking the chance that the publisher can't get it out in enough time. And depending on where the publisher is located in the country, they have shipping deadlines every day of when they can ship by, basically. So for instance, we get for Excelcia, our UPS pickup every day at 4 o'clock. If the order is in before then and processed, it can ship. But if you call me at 4:30 and say I have to have something overnighted, there's not much I can do. So that puts more delays on the process. So just an extra little bit of planning goes a long way in making sure that the dealer and the publisher can get you what they need. And trust me, there's been times where I've had to drive to another state to get something from a teacher so another teacher can borrow it. I mean, I've seen it all. Teachers calling on the way to assessment on the bus saying, I forgot my scores, what can you do? Can you get me a letter? You know, all those things. And just prepare ahead and get 3 scores right away. It will save everybody.
Well, that also leads to the temptation of, well, I can't get it as soon as I want it, so I'll just photocopy it and use a photocopy score, which of course, you know, that's against the copyright law. But if you do that and then you end up not purchasing those scores, well, yeah, you're hurting everybody, I would say, in the food chain. Of course, you're hurting the composer, you're hurting the dealer who you hopefully are supporting, you
Right.
then hurt the publisher, which then, if the more we copy music, then the less value music has. And essentially you're telling your students music doesn't have value when you do that, but it's going to ultimately hurt the folks at the bottom of the pyramid. You know, that person whose job is to pick that score or that set off the shelf, stick it in a box, and do all the shipping. Because those would be the lower end employees who make the least money, you know, paid by the hour or whatever. So, you know, ultimately you're going to hurt people who you don't really intend to hurt in effect. And you're really not setting a good example for your students that music does have value. I think we all believe that it does. And want to have that. And so we should support each other in that regard as well. It's kind of like when, you know, somebody's asked to play at a bar, you know, as a live, Miss Music plays live music, and they say, well, you know, this isn't paying, it's just for exposure. Well, you know, you think that's wrong. It's kind of the same thing of asking a composer to basically give you their piece for nothing.
Yeah.
And it's really the same sort of thing.
And I would absolutely, just to reiterate that, is for musicians as educators as well too. I think we need to put ourselves in the position that every time you go and you're tempted to make a copy at the machine of a piece of music, you have to say to yourself, if I composed a piece and this was my piece, how would I feel if I was losing money because somebody was doing the same thing I was doing? And that kind of puts you in a down-to-earth moment, and I think that helps too.
And we have the availability now to do digital downloads with purchases and stuff like that from many companies and
Right.
stuff. So there are ways to get that done and still help the composers and everybody else involved. So that is a nice benefit of technology. that I'm also sure that everyone heard Diana's grocery store comment, because it hit home a little harder for me thinking about trying to find stuff in the grocery store right now, talking about when you go, because we all can see supply and demand working very hard currently. So I think that's a nice analogy there.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up, which, by the way, thank you so much for all of this really cool and kind of inside information, I think is important, especially considering, I think, from the outside looking in, it's hard to see some of these things work. If you could work on changing one thing in the industry, and I know that's hard, just one, but if you could, on one thing as your top mission, what would that be? This is a couple part question. Do you think it's reasonable that we'll see that kind of change in the future? Are you currently doing something in your professional life that may be leading us towards that? And if so, how? So big I question there. I'll re-ask if you need some more.
You want to take that first, Diane?
Yeah, I will. So I entered this industry very, very young and right out of college, and I've seen it through the years. And if there's one thing I can express, it's the fact that we need more young people engaged in the industry as a whole, just not as teachers or performers. One of the things I never realized when I decided in high school I wanted to go off and be a music teacher is how big the industry is. And it wasn't until I needed a job after leaving college that I got into the publishing side and realized that it's marketing, it's sales, it's manufacturing, rentals. I mean, it's massive. And what I've seen over the past 15 or so years is that we're seeing an older generation retire. To say that, you know, and there's not enough young people, I feel, that are in it that can pick it back up and lead it through the next couple generations. So as an educator, I think it's incredibly important to inspire your kids that have an interest in music, that maybe aren't going to be that top, you know, performer, or maybe have a passion for teaching, but maybe have a passion for law. Maybe they can work with copyrights and royalties, because they also need to have a background in music as well too. I mean, just really express to your students that there is a huge industry out here that needs many holes to be filled. And I'm glad to say I've seen positive movement in this way, but there needs to be more. Is that when I started, there weren't a lot of females in a leadership role in the industry. And I felt very alone, but I have worked, I have to say, thankfully, my way up over the years to finally be in a leadership role in this industry. And I can't express how great it feels, but how lonely sometimes it feels. So, which means that I think that we can all do a better part of just encouraging young women to get into the industry and aspire for leadership roles.
And it starts in the classroom.
Oh yeah. Well, if I can, I'll tag on that a little bit. You know, it's a changing world, and we all have to you know, figure out a way to do better in what we're trying to do, and especially in areas of diversity and things like that. We have to, you know, find a way to do that, and it's necessary, and it's important that we do that. And the composers that we have and the authors that we have, we try, and then we're working on that every single day. But to answer your question, Tyler, I kind of have maybe three things. One, I already expressed that I want there to be a publishing company, and we're trying to be that focuses more on the composer and tries to bring more of them back into the fold of feeling like they're treated like they're an important part of the equation. They're the most important part, in my opinion, because without them we have nothing. And you know, it has to be that they're involved in the process, and they feel like that their music is getting out there by what we're trying to do. The other thing that I think we're also trying to do is, we talked about the inventory, loading music dealers down with inventory. Diana can tell you from her experience when she started in 2005, the number of local music stores has continually gone down and down and down and down. I think some of that has to do with the fact that there has been some consolidation, which isn't always a bad thing, but it's becoming more of, like there's bigger companies that take more of the pie of the sales, and so the little dealers get squeezed out. I think inventory management was a big thing with that. So trying to still be a dealer friendly publisher, well, trying to be a dealer friendly publisher. We don't go out of our way to sell direct. We really want to support the industry. We really want to support all of the dealers, your local dealer that we hope that you'll support as well. They say buy local. We feel strongly about that because a healthy dealer network is good for all of us to do that. And then the other thing I mentioned earlier as well is we just want to do new and innovative things and keeping, pieces in print, making them available always. And then also, I guess I was going to say 3, but now the 4th thing is education has always been my focus. And I want to educate through the music that we publish. And I want to continue to do that. And that also involves doing some innovative and different things with technology and with digital delivery and whatever that might be to help students. For example, what we're doing right now is informing people through technology of how the industry works, because so many people don't know how the whole thing works. So that's probably more than you wanted, but that's what you got.
Hey, there you go. It works. Well, thank you both for being here. Again, I'm with Larry Clark, president of Excelcia Music Publishing, founder as well, and composer, and Diana Traietta, teacher educator, now author, editor, and director of sales and marketing at Excelcia Music Publishing. So again, we have lots of jobs out here for all aspirations. If you're a director or a teacher, please inspire your students to think about the field. As a publishing company, we're happy to serve our dealer network and form those relationships. So thank you guys so much for all of your what you've already done for the industry and what you're going to continue to do. And thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.